Yeoman and Tim Kang aren't real cops, but they're
TV Police!
the TV Police.
TV Police!
I saw that online today and I was like, I want to do that at the start of the TV Police. And we did. Joined obviously today by Mini Me and Mini You.
There they are. There they are. On all their glory right there.
We're almost there, mate. We're almost there.
Yeah. Penultimate.
Episode 22. I think about when we started this, and in my wildest dreams, I can't imagine that we would have had the discipline and application to make it this far. So, yes. Well done, boys. Well done. Good job.
Good job, everyone. All involved.
All involved, yeah. And I thought it was about time to bring these guys back because, it was such a sweet gift from Crystal. I really enjoyed this episode. Written, of course, by the phenomenal Erica Green Swafford, fabulous writer and author, obviously, of your prototype. You know, we've talked a lot about that, and Red Handed, of course, being the signature Mentalist episode, I think that we agreed. John Paulson directed this one, fabulous Australian director, good friend of Simon's, and a dear friend of the show as well. Became a really, really fond presence and someone that we always enjoyed having back. I don't know if it was the episode that I thought it was going to be. In fact, when I heard the title, for some reason, Blood Brothers took my mind to the MMA episode, which is actually Blood Sport. And I think that is a couple of seasons away. But my goodness, this one was a perfect example of how the show can be really fun, really light, and still have a punch. I think we've talked a lot about our tonal variants in the show. But what I appreciated about this episode was that it was definitely on the more playful side, and yet it still really, really had me invested. And on a personal note, it had a lot of very, very, what I would call characteristic lines that came out of this episode, things that you and that I think the fans have remembered long after. And just signature moments that I didn't remember all being in this episode. So I thought it was a great example of, obviously we have in the finale a completely blow the doors off, extremely serious, pitching up everything that's coming for season 2. But in this episode, it felt like a bit of a sort of standalone. And yet there was enough drama within it. And even the sort of more faintly ridiculous storytelling elements, the legend of Zachariah, all that stuff, it did have a nice payoff. So I'll jump in. I'll do us a little case summary here.
Sure.
I have to move these guys. Excuse me, Minnie Cho and Minnie Rigsby. There we are. All right, here we go. The CBI investigates the murder of a troubled teen found dead in the woods near an unconventional wilderness program, uncovering hidden hierarchies, legends, and dark secrets amongst its students. Thanks, ChatGPT, for that wonderful summary. I love the economy of words there. So we're looking at Justin Prentiss, a young troubled gentleman found dead in the woods. Now, immediately there were a couple of logic bumps for me in this episode. One was, we're at the crime scene, and this was just an example of, I think the CBI had basically just given up all police work, because I've never seen us more in audience mode. Jane had his Gandalf stick, right? And he was sort of like, but when it actually came to the crime scene, we all just sort of like stood back and let him do his thing. And it's interesting to see how, I guess, different writers approach the theme that we've often talked about, which is police investigation versus Jane's procedure. Right. And in this one, we seemed very happy to just let him roll. And in fact, the police work was very secondary to him just sort of holding court and interrogating these, I forget the name of the gentleman who runs the wilderness program. Remember his name?
Asher MacLean.
Asher MacLean, that's it, yeah. And there's clearly a little bit of beef. And
sure.
I
also liked how the park ranger wasn't going to be charmed.
She wasn't having any of it.
Wasn't having any of it.
Yeah. Having any of it. And One thing that I did find a little upsetting after lauding our police work in previous episodes was the fact that we walked about 10 feet and then there was an open grave that apparently we had just missed. Things like that make me feel a little bit sad playing the policeman because I'm like, oh, I wish we were shown as being better. I remember vividly filming this episode. I'm trying to, I don't know if I could place exactly where the woods were. I know that we used part of Warner Brothers for the backwoods when you and I were off on our treasure hunt, weren't we?
I think
That
almost
was,
all of it was in the on the back lot, wasn't it?
it was? I don't
Yeah.
think that initial part was. I thought that initial part was, in fact, I remember it being in I want to say Griffith Park. It's not Griffith Park. I remember the scene where I was showering all the stuff off me after jumping in the lake. And I remember being on location somewhere because we'd popped up a tent so that Cindy, our dresser, who was phenomenal, could oversee my full body spray painting. Because I thought, if I'm going to be, naked, then let's paint them in. I remember at the time feeling like, should have had more juices this week. Like I might have had a day where I ate some solids.
One of the bloopers where it was windy during that scene and Amanda had some issues, and also the shirt in the blooper that you were wearing was like an extra small.
So I'm glad you brought that up.
But I think it was so small, it wasn't going to ever happen that I think maybe Paulson got it like a medium or or a large or like a regular so that you could actually put it on, right? Is that what happened?
I actually, I think it was, it was a child's t-shirt.
The one you end up with, you're walking around with Ben Pelt and that's a regular shirt. It fit you fine.
I mean, it's pretty tight.
No, okay, all right.
If you see me in the subsequent, so go back and watch and see me in that subsequent scene with Amanda where I'm fully clothed, it's definitely a little,
Watch the blooper because it is painted on. I mean,
oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I think I have
the shirt sizing changed a little bit.
Didn't I have you to thank for that?
Yeah, I made that suggestion. Yes.
Yeah, I thank you for that.
I said, hey, do you have an extra small? Yeah.
That T-shirt moment was absolutely hilarious. In fact, it made it into my one-word remembrance.
Very good.
So I won't give you the main word. Let me see if I can just sneak this in.
Okay.
There's my side word.
Tiny
T-shirt.
You're really now also embracing the one-word remembrance Tim style rather than the 18-word remembrance. Yeah. You're not being shy about, we call it one-word remembrance, but it's actually however many words you need remembrance.
We've flouted the rules so many times, and I thought a lot of good performances too. I thought the guy playing Asher was great and very familiar. I couldn't place where I knew him from, but I remember at the time working with him, and it always feels good when you've got a solid, anchor in the guest spots. We revisited a very common theme too of children and the perspective of kids. And I think the more that this has been sort of laid on in the first season, the more I've realized that Patrick Jane in many ways is he loves to play and he's an overgrown kid in the best possible way. He has a great relationship with kids. And I think that there is something about the openness and honesty and no BS of kids that actually vibes very well with Jane. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I totally agree.
So I think that for me, lensing the whole murder through the eyes of children was a wonderful way of giving agency to Jane's usual trick of, I'm going to have some fun and I'm going to play. And in fact, he says it explicitly in this episode. He's like, oh no, I'm just bored.
That's too tedious. Yeah. Also, that's too tedious. I'm out of here.
That sounds way too tedious. So there is this sense that we're always being slightly played with. And I think it's, it does need an anchor, but this is what I love about the push and pull of our show. I love working with John. I think John is a great director. I've had the good fortune of working with him on other projects too. I actually worked with him on the centenary episode of Elementary, a show whose DNA I think owes a lot to our show.
Sure.
But I feel like John just really always understood the assignment. You know what I mean? He was no drama. He came in. It was also wonderful that he had a shorthand with Simon because Simon trusted him. And I think that's really important too when your
Just made the
lead.
whole process easier,
It does.
all around.
And I really just enjoyed him as a presence on set.
Yeah.
He's very easygoing. He's like, oh yeah, go on then, mate.
right.
And he had so much fun with me with that ghillie suit. He was just like get in your ghillie suit, mate. He goes, I'll talk to costume, see if you can take it home with you. I was like, no, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
Can't see any.
I got a few at
any
home.
use.
We're fine.
I will tell you at this point, full disclosure, my word is ghillie suit.
Ah, there you go. Okay.
Did we get the same word?
We did not.
Oh man, I thought for sure today between tiny t-shirt and ghillie suit, it would be our second of the season.
I'm gonna go into my word in a second, but I did want to just mention to you, that that's not how you spell ghillie suit.
I knew it isn't. I knew it's Gillet, right?
No, it's Ghillie.
Oh, that was a mile off. I've already, embarrassed my alma mater, Oxford, as an English graduate earlier. So I think it's just downhill from here.
Yeah.
Here we are. So say that again. It's Ghillie. Ghillie.
Ghillie
suit.
Yes.
So like I said, my word is ghillie suit, spelled
there it is
impeccably.
There it is.
I knew it was obviously spelled like that.
My word for this episode actually is
outdoor ed.
Oh,
okay.
That stands for outdoor education, and that's what I remember from when I was a kid. And I came away from this episode with that feeling, and that's the feeling of being around a campfire telling ghost stories or telling scary stories. And it was very interesting for me to see Erica, and I'm sure, and I don't know if this was a thing in the UK when you were growing up, but sleepaway camp is very common, right?
Oh yeah.
During summers, you take off for a month and leave your parents at home and you're outdoors. So that's what it was interesting for me to see this very quintessential kid experience be the foundation for Erica's story. Albeit she used the outdoor education as a troubled teen, wilderness camp. But that whole concept of sitting around the fire telling scary stories and I just loved doing that when I was a kid. And that's what I took away when I watched the episode. It's really nice.
It's so funny because there's so many like meta layers to unpick in that too, because I feel like as Rigsby and Cho was almost sort of taken back to his childhood as we were walking around. And, and I thought that that's a nice organic way to talk a little bit about that too, because we've talked a number of times about the challenges of a procedural show, how your storyline gets picked up and then often put down. And it was one of those moments where we got that unveiling of this like really, really cool nugget of information about Cho. And it was like, oh yeah, it reminded me when I was in juvie. Rigsby's like, you're at juvenile hall? And you're like, yeah. And then you hit us with the ultimate kind of episodic procedural line. Yeah, I'll tell you about it someday. I was like, man, come on.
Come on.
Come on. I wanted to hear about that.
As I read the script, I was like, oh, come on. Yeah.
You read my file? Yeah. I read your file, but we're not going to hear about it. And I was like, oh,
at all. Yeah.
But I thought that it was it was a very, very nice and neat way to be able to crack something open and leave it right there. And I thought that was a very Bruno-esque device. I'm going to drop a really, really big piece of information here, and then I'm just going to let it sit. And so we don't revisit that for quite a while.
Like seasons. I don't even remember exactly, but it's a while. Yeah.
But what is interesting about it is that there are and maybe it's just heightened for TV, obviously, but if you look at our team, various levels of dysfunction have brought us into law enforcement. Would you say that's fair? Right?
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah. Yeah.
Rigsby's got his dad's criminal background, the biker gang, everything that was going on with, we'll see later when, Rigsby's father comes in. But you take your moments, and I thought we were about to get a Cho moment there. I was like, oh, this is going to be a Cho moment. And then
Yeah.
before we know it,
And
it
then
was
no.
just, no, we're not going to be doing that.
Yeah. Wah,
But
wah. Yeah.
I also for a second thought when we got our treasure hunt map and we were off looking for the crazy guy in the woods hut
Yeah.
that we were actually gonna, because this is the curious thing about doing this rewatch is that so many episodes for me are indistinct and they blend into one, or I
Sure.
remember a bit from one episode that I thought was part of another episode. And this was one of those. As we were trekking through the woods, I thought we were going to end up in that barn where I put the sword through the drum.
Right.
You remember that episode?
Yeah, I totally do. Yeah.
And it's made even more confusing for, I guess, us as actors, because we remember that was the same location.
Sure.
It's not filmed as the same location, but
Sure.
in
Right.
real life, it was all part of the Warner Brothers backlot. So every
Right.
time I saw us traipsing around the area, which looks heavily wooded, I want to show the other side of the camera, which is just all of our 300 crew standing there on a road, and in the backdrop, all of the Warner Brothers offices. So it is very hard to sort of piece all those bits together. But all of those things that you're describing, I thought were wonderful because it also set up a wonderful way to augment the mystery of the murder. If it's
Sure.
lensed through kids, it's going to take on an
And
extra.
on top of that, a legend that the kids
Yes.
either have created or have heard secondhand. It just adds to the mystique. It's really neat.
Yeah, because my kids are like that too. Like my daughter had her first sleepaway camp this year,
Right.
and I don't know what it is as a kid, but kids love to scare themselves whilst they still know they're safe. There's
Right.
something about being able to sort of, okay, I know in the confines of this camp I'm safe,
Mhm.
but how can we push ourselves to be just scared enough? And then there's
Right.
always one kid who's like, that went too far.
Right.
That was
Right.
too
That's of course.
much.
Of course. Yeah.
But I thought that it was a very clever device to do it through the children, because suddenly everything was augmented.
Mhm.
When you see that young kid who's got the poison ivy stuff,
Right.
he's terrified and then
Mhm.
at the end when you see the suspect who actually gets grabbed by the hand, by the
Mhm.
ghillie suited hand, he's like, oh my God, it's real.
Yeah. Yeah.
That to me was a really, really,
That
really
was a fun
interesting
moment.
device, because it
Yeah.
just technically it made the stakes so much more higher, because what you're dealing with is just a total nonsense mythology, imagined mythology. There was actually something
Something
truly
real going on.
horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, something really real going on. And I thought that was credit to Erica and credit to our show as well. The fact that
Mhm.
we can veil something so heavy and present it in a surrounding context that feels a lot lighter.
And I feel
Because,
like Erica in particular is quite adept at that.
yeah, she
That
is. I
very
agree.
thing. I mean, even again, we've how many times have we referenced her episode? Red-handed,
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's his name? The degenerate gambler, Cal Trask. Remember? Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
A character
Oh, yeah.
like Cal Trask, and then we
Yeah.
have something very serious happening underneath in
Yeah.
Red-handed, So same thing here,
It's exactly
wonderful.
the same thing. And
Yeah.
I thought the premise also of Bright Arch was interesting. Are there wilderness reform camps for young offenders? It
I think
sounded
so.
entirely
I think there are,
plausible.
yeah.
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 And I liked that idea of sort of connecting with nature and it being a rehabilitative thing. But it was a tremendous, I mean, how old were these kids supposed to be?
Well, it's supposed to be a high school, so,
So
teenagers. Yeah.
mid-teens?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like 13 to
Now,
18.
the ankle bracelet seemed a little severe, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, when the
Well, I
kid,
mean,
the kid,
I think Principal MacLean gave a description on what the purpose of that was, and that it was in the brochure. Parents are aware of it, etc.
page
Right?
3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
page 3 of the brochure.
I thought today also was a great example of how Lisbon, it, it had one of my favorite things throughout the whole series is, and I don't know why, and I think it's just in her defense, it's because Robin had to probably be the first line of introduction for the CBI all the time.
Right.
But I thought we were going to get one of those signature upside down Lisbon badges today, because there was a moment where she puts the badge up and it's almost upside down and then she just corrects it. But I have seen a couple of wallet badge moments that were
upside down.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
That were upside down. Did you ever have to second guess? Did you ever? You always seemed so au fait with that stuff, but like I always made sure when I put it in my pocket, it was the right way up.
That's exactly how I'd be like, is that okay? Boom. Yeah.
These are the inside tricks of the TV police.
Did you notice that Carl Sonnenberg evidence tent moment that Rigsby had? When you put the index card over the branch, you remember that, right? And then the tent that happened on the branch that Rigsby put on the branch, yeah. So that brought me back. Well. That brought me back to when we were having our conversation about Carl, and you run out of those yellow tents. You just take an index card, fold it, and throw it down onto the
evidence.
That's it. Yeah.
There we are.
There it is. Yeah.
Did you did that, didn't you, in one of those early episodes? You did that in the
earlier episode, and we had a big talk about it. In fact, I think we talked about it just after Carl's episode. He gave me the instruction of, if you run out of evidence tents, just make one up with an index card. And I asked him, and I said, should I write what it is and my name? And he's like, no, just fold a piece, just fold an index card. And then we made the joke about how Cho likes to walk around with a stack of index cards just in case.
I remember.
He runs out of tents, So
now,
you know what?
Tell me.
Hang on one second. I forgot something in the other room. Let me let me go grab it real quick. Yeah.
Go do
Sorry.
Hey, have you seen my water?
Oh, hello, mate. Yeah, it's just great.
Thanks. All right.
You get what you needed?
Sorry about that. I just had to grab my water.
Oh, sweet. Okay, cool. I thought that the setting as well was, in typical Mentalist style, quite often the landscape becomes a very active character. And I thought that there was a real taste of that in today's episode too. The woods were almost a character in and of themselves, to a point where the woods had hands in the end,
It came out and grabbed you. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was hand in glove with the Zachariah mythology, the idea that the woods were this terrifying place where people were being how did he dispose of his victims? Hung from the trees or cut up or something? It was all pretty
chopped them all up, cut off their heads, and then placed the heads in trees.
I mean,
pretty
only kids, only kids could come up with that level of disturbing, and But it was for me, that sort of symbolism was typical Mentalist, to be able to take a backdrop and make it feel like an active participant. And I can't think of many shows that manage to do that. I know we've talked frequently about the fact that California is a very active character in this. But in this episode, I felt like the reclusive nature of the location became part and parcel of the story itself. The murder was perpetrated, obviously, in the forest. The reclusive nature of the setting was part and parcel of the rehabilitation of these kids. And it was probably also allowed the cover of darkness for all of the terrible things that this principal guy was getting away with. Anyway, so it made the whole sort of denouement of the episode feel a little bit strange to me. Like it was, you have this kid on the one hand who's like, I'm going to be fine. I'm a minor. Nothing's going to happen to me. And then you have the abused party who basically she was saying, maybe it was consensual, maybe it wasn't. And then the principal Asher, who seemed absolutely flabbergasted that he was being prosecuted at all. So it sort of, it ended up, maybe it was just, I wasn't paying enough attention probably. Sometimes when you're driving towards the episode conclusion in our show, I feel like it's very, very clear and very obvious the way it's going to go and you can't argue with it. This felt a little muddier, and I don't know if it was because of the delicacy of handling a very, very difficult subject and also the delicacy of it coming through minors as well. That's what I also appreciate about The Mentalist, is that we are not afraid to take on some very, very weighty topics, and also try to dress them with a surrounding likeness, because as Jane's investigating all of this, he's doing it in typical Jane style as a play. It's all a setup, you know? We'll go off, I'll rehearse. This is the setup, we'll do it. And at this point, there's absolutely no pushback from us at all. We're like, whatever it is you need. What's the play going to be this week?
We're
know?
here to help you. Yeah.
But I think
I had a quick question on some of the logic of it. There was one section, and I don't know, maybe it was when they were talking about the legend of Zachariah, the Axeman. And one of the kids, I think it was, what's his name? Oren. He had mentioned when Jane was asking about the legend, he had mentioned that there was a townie kid that got murdered. I'm trying to figure out, was that meant to be Zachariah? And the townie kid got murdered like last year or something. It was meant to be Zachariah coming back and murdering a townie kid, right? Was that right?
I think that was lost on me, if I'm honest.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure if I remember that. It was clear where the episode was going, but for me, it did unravel a bit towards the end. And I don't know, maybe that's me not paying enough attention. Towards the end, the episode did unravel a bit. It was like it all sort of built up towards the show, the play of, Jane doing his... It's the campfire moment you're talking about. Let's set up the scariest possible story. And that seemed to me to be the focus of it. And then steadily after that, all of the facts around the wider world seemed to just be
secondary.
A little less, I wouldn't say secondary, but maybe they didn't hold up to the most logical scrutiny.
Sure. Yeah.
I thought it was go ahead.
I was going to say, there are a few moments I just wanted to bring up, make sure we touch on them. A really funny moment when, first of all, I love the moment when Cho and Rigsby are going after that one kid. Brian. Right?
I did too. Yeah.
And, it's a sort of a bro kind of, I got this. Nah, I got it.
I got it.
No, okay. After you. Great. All right. You get this one. That moment, it was great because it was really funny because Rigsby takes off his jacket because he knows he's going to end up in the water. So it was like a preemptive jacket removal because if you don't know you're going to end up in the water, you leave the jacket on. You run with the jacket. When do you ever do that unless you know you're going to end up wet? So
I've been thinking about that, but clearly what had formed in his mind, it was one of two things that, this is my defense of that. One is I'm running at a certain angle. The kid's running at another angle. It's inevitable where we're going. The second was, in my mind...
You think Rigsby came up with that calculation in an instant before he takes off? That's your justification?
I think it was just science tells you that, because the way he tips him in, or the secondary possibility is maybe he just really liked that jacket. Maybe he was like, not my new leather jacket.
He didn't even want to sweat in the jacket.
No.
It wasn't even about ending up in the water.
It felt to me like as he took off, he was like, I just bought this really expensive new leather jacket. If I get into some sort of tussle, I don't want to get it dirty.
He throws on the ground.
He throws on the ground, admittedly, but just imagine how ruined that leather jacket would have got
of course.
if I'd gone in the lake.
Oh, it would have been done.
What was interesting was I remember on that day asking John if I could do the stunt.
Because I was like, did you do it?
No, it didn't, and it wasn't because I didn't want to, but I don't think they were crazy about me. I remember a conversation I had with John, and he took me over to the lake, and he was like, "Listen, mate, I don't think you want to go in that lake," and he showed me it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, you're probably right. You guys, we're going to need you for the rest of the week, and just in the interest of not getting sick." So at that point, I turned around to my stunt double. I was like, "It's all you, buddy." And but I was hoping for something.
He earned his money that day.
Had I been doing it, obviously, jacket would have come off. Maybe the pants would have come off too. Maybe Rigsby was just like, not these pants,
Right.
By the time you cut to the cut of us at the river, Rigsby's
He's
literally
gone.
just in his underwear already. He's already in his
he's
underwear.
gone. The kid's like
And he's
back
gone.
home
The
already.
kid's
Yeah.
gone. I'm like, wait a second. I'm just in the middle. Oi. Yeah. Meanwhile, Cho's taking care of it. It was one of those things where, and I think you and I are very similar in this respect. I think sometimes our stunt doubles probably felt very frustrated because we were very much actors who were like, if we were allowed to do it, we would always try and do it, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
And I had in later years a guy who, Austin, his name was, right? And he doubled for Rigsby. And he was a parkour expert.
Right.
And so inexplicably, we just looked for these moments to get Rigsby like running up the side of a building. And I was like, I don't know, dude. Like, I love it.
Right.
It looks awesome. But there is nothing in the mythology of this show to support the fact that Rigsby could walk,
scale walls.
Scale walls and do 90-degree walks and then sort of triple somersault from one wall to another.
That's a whole different show.
Most stunt guys that I've ever worked with, they just want to be out there doing the hits. They're like, let me back in again. So every time you've got an actor who's like, I got this, they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, off you go.
Yeah, over here holding their knee pads, or whatever, right? The last thing I'll say about the trivia of the episode is Cho's one-liner, the Cho liner, is we do need better brand awareness.
It's like you read my mind. It's like
There you go.
literally like you read my mind.
Okay.
I was just about to get to move on to that, but
Sorry,
I love
please.
that you brought that up. No, please. It was your line and it was delivered so beautifully. The Marshall Winston moment where, and I think this is a bit that we've ended up having fun with as a show, isn't it? Because do you remember when you first came to the show hearing about the CBI? I'm like,
sure.
I know who the
like
FBI
what?
are,
right?
But you're right. We do need better brand awareness. Wasn't there there's another line in another episode that's similar to that? I seem to remember it. It was something like, we're like the FBI, but with...
Yeah, something along those lines. I don't remember
something
exactly.
More,
but
like
yes,
more convenient access or something. I can't remember. But it was a running gag, wasn't it? That like CBI, because we come into all these crime scenes like CBI. If someone was running
like,
into
who's that?
Who?
Yeah. But you know what? I did realize when we first started the show and I was doing my research into it, every state has their state level FBI.
Well, I was going to ask you that. Is there like Nebraska BI?
Bureau of
the NBI.
Yes.
Interesting.
There is, yeah. So like the most recent example of that coming up in our industry is that Stephen King HBO show, The Outsider.
The Outsider, yeah.
The Outsider. And in that, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation is showcased, is featured.
Huh.
So yeah, they're the GBI. Yeah. And in fact, they refer to it in the show as, GBI agent so-and-so. And so every state has their investigative arm. But yeah, at the time,
and so how does that work
to reference it?
Well, it's interesting because for those who are not familiar, the CBI was, I believe it's been disbanded now. I don't know if we had any part in that, but the CBI was a real organization that I think is no longer active. Am I right in thinking that?
No, it's still active, but it's not an independent organization. It's under the Department of Justice, so it falls.
I see.
It was folded into a different department.
And so, what is the hierarchy of power then when you come to a crime scene? If I've come in as a member of the CBI, the FBI trump me if they want to take this? Is that how it works?
Honestly, I think all that jurisdictional stuff is, and I think we referenced this with Carl a bit. I asked him in his episode if a CBI agent came in to a crime scene that was yours, do they have seniority? Or say no, absolutely not.
Right.
The outside agency that's outside of whoever initially grabbed the case, any outside agency is there in a support capacity. So, the CBI would be there to help. And I know how Lisbon loves to come in and go, we don't what's her line? We don't help, we take over, or something.
We take over, yeah.
Right?
Take part, we take over.
This is our case now. I don't know about the reality of that comment, but she says it quite a bit.
I don't know if I'd ever heard of the CBI before, and it's an interesting pluck, and I'd be sort of fascinated to learn. Perhaps we've got folks out there who work in these branches of enforcement, and it would be
great.
wonderful to have someone on who could kind of talk us through what that pecking order does look like, and when you're on a crime scene.
I think the other thing, especially in our show and the way that they portray that level of law enforcement, I think too, the highest ranking law enforcement official in the state of California is the attorney general. So whatever he or she says, they get the seniority. So if the attorney general says, no, LAPD is doing this one, then CBI has to back off. But more oftentimes than not, the attorney general is telling us to go take over, to go handle this. Right?
And I wonder how much friction or how much that might cause, number one, but also how much people actually give that any regard.
This episode, the what's her name? Who was the Chief Brody? I think Chief Brody gave a bit of that, right? Hey, when are you guys gonna finish up what you're gonna do and get out of here? And her and Lisbon had some friction at the top of the show.
Yeah, what was that? What was that all about?
Reasons.
I got the jurisdictional sort of bumping that was going on there. But what was the story? Was it properly explained, the story as to why they didn't like each other, the Asher character and the Ranger?
Jane mentioned that. Jane said,
was it because of his harsh treatment of the kid, or was there something deeper than that?
No. I think literally Jane makes mention of Chief Brody thinks MacLean is a liberal idiot, and MacLean thinks Chief Brody is an uptight, conservative, It was just more of a personality kind of thing.
Sure.
It was never gone into, like, they didn't have, like, a history or anything. They just
I wondered if there'd been some sort of, like, love affair being alluded to there.
No. It didn't go
nothing of that sort. But, No, this was, it was one of those episodes that as I was watching it back, I was like, oh, wow, this is full of so many... I don't know how you remember the show, but I remember the show as a series of sort of marquee moments.
Yeah.
And I guess that's just the way that memory is. And as you get older, I mean, obviously we still look the same, but your recall of things becomes a little bit more like visual moments. And so many of the moments that represented the Mentalist in my imagination belonged in this episode. The tiny T-shirt was something that you and I have referenced so many times, and the jumping in the lake. But I think also because these are moments that have been heavily documented. So I remember we had a lot of bloopers from this episode too. The moment that you were referencing where I'm putting on the shirt. I had to suffer a double indignity with that shirt, right? Because I had the onset moment of all of this, right? And then I had to go and ADR it. So they pulled me in for ADR, and all I had to do was go...
all the efforts?
And for those who don't know, sometimes when you're out in the field, you might not get a line cleanly enough, so you're brought back in post-production to re-record the line. And it can be a very strange thing if you're doing quite physical things, right? So if you're doing a fight scene, I cannot tell you the amount of times I've been in a room and it's usually you and the showrunner and the director, and then there's, a gallery of engineers, sound engineers as well. And you're there going, they're like, great, now a bit more effort in that one.
It is a little odd.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
And then they're like, can you stop moving your hands? Because we can hear you moving your hands around. I'm like, but I need something to be able to get me into that.
To move
yeah.
Right.
Are you, when you do your ADR, because you have a powerful, commanding radio voice, do you find yourself trying to react the scene, or do you just sort of deliver the words? Like, because when I'm in ADR, I find myself actually like running, and I'm doing it now. I'm banging the microphone as I'm.
I fully do perform it in my head. And that's interesting that you brought it up, because that is the absolute last chance that I can change a performance if I didn't like it on the day. Just tweaking the meaning of a line, and it has happened a handful of times where I've gone, yes, thank you. I didn't like how that ended, and we had to move on. Or this is another thing that happens. Sometimes the person that you're reading with changes their performance. So your performance doesn't make sense.
Sure.
But we've already done your coverage. So we're not going to come back and get your coverage. So
that's the worst. Yeah.
That's the one time, another occasion where, oh, thank God I can redo this and it'll match better with what the guest star was giving or whatever. So I just kind of look
do you
at
think you think that you have enough agency, I guess, to be able to express that just through the dialogue, even because what people have to remember is this doesn't change your physical performance. Your physical performance is fixed. We've already recorded that. You think you can change the sense of it just with your voice, just by an inflection, or?
Yeah, it depends. I mean,
right.
If Cho is running full speed, I can't suddenly start taking a nap. You know what I mean? He's not gonna.
No, sure.
You know what I mean? I mean, within the bounds of what's happening, but certainly there have been a number, and it's saved me a number of times. I mean, more than a few times, where I go, "Oh my God, thank you!" And I see the final product after ADR. I see the final episode. I go, "Yes,
that was the one I wanted.
I corrected it. Yes, so successfully."
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Well, as I always used to joke, I didn't really do ADR because I just said it right the first time.
Exactly. And the sound was perfect. Yeah. So it was chef's kiss every time out.
Well, I was glad of ADR for a number of reasons, because it's also a safety net for someone who is doing an accent. You have to bear in mind that I started the series working with a dialect coach. Had been working constantly with a wonderful guy called Jerome Butler. Jerome was a wonderful guy to work with because he was a Juilliard grad. And so he would approach it not just from a technical standpoint, but from a very informed acting choice standpoint too, which I really appreciated, because what people quite often do is they divorce the technical act of acting from the intention, and the two go hand in hand.
Yeah.
The emotionality and the thrust of the scene is going to determine what your vocal quality will be.
Right.
As you said, if you're running, that will change your voice to when you're napping. So when you are effectively speaking with a foreign accent that isn't your own, you have to be very careful of what those extremities of emotion can do. When I speak to people who are watching the show, or they know it, they're like, "Oh, but you feel like you're built like an American." So there's a duality of perception, and obviously physicality is something that is very telling, but can also be tremendously misleading. TV is a strange place to live because people assume that you are your character. Conversations I've had with fans of the show, they're like, Tim smiles? I'm like, well, of course he smiles.
Right.
Because no one... Did you find yourself leaning more and more into Cho's solemnity because you knew it was a choice that was working? Because obviously I remember you talking about how you'd auditioned for Cho and they were really liking where you were going with the deadpanness of it all. Did you find yourself consciously I know there are elements of Rigsby that, and I guess this is the unique thing about TV, is that you, unlike a movie, you do have a chance to test things and see how they land with an audience.
Right.
You don't usually get that feedback, but with a long-running show, you can go,
You do.
I'm going to try this. Oh, that's worked. And it's hard then as a performer to not maybe even subconsciously go, I'll play that beat there.
It was a very simple approach to this guy. Now, after a few seasons, you want to kind of spread your wings a little bit, but due to the nature of our show, we don't get to go home with these guys very often. And so we very rarely get to see it. And even on the occasions that we did get to go home with Cho a little bit with Summer, they're always talking about something serious and solemn. They're not, in front of the TV watching a comedy and laughing with each other. They're talking about Summer's drug problem or what, whatever. So even those topics of conversation stay serious. So we don't even in that situation see Cho smile. So we don't see any different side to him. It was just that mix of all the right things kind of came together, and that was the perfect line for me to say it in a deadpan way. And when I got that laugh, I was like, okay, now I'm onto something. Let's lean into the deadpan. And it just happened to work. And then obviously from then on, all the writers just started writing very economically. They didn't give Cho too much. They kept the mystery and just had him be sort of comic relief every once in a while with Rigsby, and then we were off to the races. You and I both.
I'm fascinated by this sort of physicality question too, because I think that it's an interesting topic for the audience to understand. For me, one of my first gateway points to a character is always the physical. I have to, more often than not, when I'm playing, the majority of roles I play are American. So usually I start with a technical exercise of finding that voice. My American voice is different to my British voice. You listen to me as Rigsby. Yes, of course, it's me saying it, but the timbre of the voice, the quality of the voice, the sounds, and the spectrum of the American accent is different to the spectrum of my British accent. So for me, the physicality of where does the voice live? Where does the body live? Those are things that are the easiest access points for me, even before I get to the words. So a lot of that is also informed by costume. So we were always in suits. So there's a certain adroitness, there's a certain business about that you don't have this, like I always say, NAR, no acting required. The formality of the setup puts you in place in the same way.
Of course.
I didn't go on to play a cop. I went on after The Mentalist to play Benedict Arnold. Now, you can imagine like the 180-degree head spin that would take. Because there I had to invent a completely unique voice that, quite honestly, no one would have any idea what that voice sounded like. We don't know what the founding fathers sounded like. I read a bunch of books like The Mother Tongue, and it was really interesting because what I found was that more likely the guys of that time would have had colloquialized sort of versions of West Country British accents. And because that first wave of settlers that came over were likely, I remember I'm put in mind of a wonderful comedy bit that Eddie Izzard, the comedian Eddie Izzard, does. And he talks about the founding fathers, and he's like, took off from Plymouth and landed in Plymouth. How lucky is that? But it's true. Like, they sailed from the port of Plymouth, renamed the landing port Plymouth, and was a huge influx, basically, of West Country farmers. And so that's why when you go to the west of America, West Virginia and Virginia, and when we were filming Turn in Virginia,
the east of America.
Sorry, the east of America, but West Virginia. If you go to those territories, there are rural accents there that sound very close to West Country rural accents in England. Now, I say this because when I put on that uniform and I had the bodice and the necktie and the wig and the jacket, that puts you in a certain physicality straight away, and that informs your character. And so those little like physical tells, I'm always interested to understand another actor's process because it's a very personal thing, isn't it? What's the first way you find a gateway into a character?
My first way into it has always been text based.
Right.
That's really it. And now starting with the text of the actual text, the script, and then all the other research and books and things that I can get my hands on about that topic. For example, I'm playing a chef. I don't know anything about that. So, I start with the text, which is the story, and then I continue with the text, and I just start looking up biographies on famous chefs or Michelin restaurants and how that whole process works, and what does it mean to be a Michelin star restaurant, and, just anything that I can get my hands on to kind of immerse myself in the world that way. Now, after that, you move on, and then you put on the chef's coat. That of course, put you in a certain
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you. But for me, I always start everything I can glean from the text. And I think I have mentioned this. I read the first Mentalist script probably 50 times, right?
Yeah.
Just to squeeze every little drop out of it. And I was only in however many scenes we were in for that pilot, right? And there wasn't a whole lot, but there was enough to where I figured banging your wife like a big bass drum, is going to be
Mhm.
delivered in a very dry delivery, and that's going to get the biggest laugh. And
Yeah.
that's kind of
You
my
you and
way.
I are very similar in that regard. I'm a voracious reader, and I think we're both very sort of foundationally cerebral actors. Obviously, I
Yeah,
think probably as a
yeah.
virtue of our upbringing as well. But the I remember
You know what?
breaking down.
You know what never worked for me in drama school. I had a buddy of mine, like, and it worked for him, but
Yeah.
he always started with shoes.
Shoes?
Shoes, yeah.
What, picking out the shoes would help
Picking out the
him?
shoes of the character. Yeah, yeah.
That's so weird.
It's so
How
weird,
funny.
but that got him in regardless.
Yeah, it's
He started
and
with his feet.
that's interesting because there is so much about the way you walk
Yeah.
and the feel, and I do get it. I can relate to that, having, known the difference between wearing Rigsby's shoes that I should have picked far more carefully because I
Mm.
did so much running, and it was
Mhm.
always in the most slippery of dress shoes,
Right.
as versus when you're playing maybe a Marine and
Yeah.
you're wearing those heavy desert boots.
Mhm.
That immediately does inform. So, I guess, although I was surprised at that, I see the method in the madness there,
Yeah.
for sure.
The suit kept me professional, but the combat boots, for me, in
Mhm.
my mind, kept me ready to chase after somebody or whatever, right?
Sure.
And I always did think that it was interesting because I was in my Danner combat boots, and you were in your super style, super fly John Varvatos, really expensive, and I was like, oh, yeah, okay.
It's
Like
like, you
it,
know
the,
what? I'm gonna pick these Christian Louboutin
yeah, Chris,
dress shoes. That'll be perfect. If I'm gonna jump in a lake, I want to
right,
make sure I'm doing it with slippery red bottom
right,
shoes. So yeah,
right.
and there was a bit of a disparity, I think, in latter seasons as the show became more successful, and
Sure.
suddenly, I think we've talked about it. Our suits went from being, I won't say Brooks Brothers, but they certainly went from being what I bought as more regular, I
Yeah,
can afford this as a police
yeah,
officer,
yeah.
to I don't know what you were wearing, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think it went through the D&G, the
Uh-huh.
Armani, and then
Uh-huh.
suddenly at the end we were just having suits
Bespoke.
tailored for us,
Yeah.
and it good times at the CBI.
Mhm.
Now,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
fascinated at that, and one thing that I always used to find very useful was not just, I would go through with the same methodology as you and read and read and read. And not just my own stuff, but sometimes what's even more informative is seeing what I remember breaking down texts and scripts at drama school. And my acting teacher used to say to me, look at what you say, and then look at what others say about you.
Mhm.
Because
Yep.
what you're saying is driven by ego.
Sure.
That's your character's vision of himself.
Mhm.
What other people say about you, that's your identity, your id. That's how
Mhm.
other people perceive you. That's how the world perceives you. And I always thought that that was a really interesting duality. So, you know,
I love that your drama teacher went that far to explain what those things meant. My drama teacher
mm,
said, or a drama teacher of mine, said the exact same thing, but it stopped at look what you say about yourself and what others' characters say about you, and that was it. There was no
well,
explanation.
I added all the explanatory
Oh,
bit,
okay, well, that was
but
from you. Yes, yes, yes.
but it's an exercise that has served me well, and I will
Oh,
say
it's great.
this,
Yeah.
if you are a young actor wanting to know what is the easiest gateway to forming my character,
Mhm,
read what you say, that's a given. Now go through the script and redline every mention of your character from someone else,
mhm,
because you will never find a truer word spoken about you than in a scene that you're not in.
right,
Because now that's not being regulated or monitored by your presence. Now you're getting a truth. If people hate Cho, they're not
right.
going to be afraid to say it.
When he's not
Whereas in
there.
front of your face, it might be,
Mhm.
hey, buddy.
"Hey, how you doing?"
Now
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
opened up a whole can of worms. And I think that for me, that tease is really interesting. And we saw a lot of that in this episode, and I wish that it had been fulfilled, but I also understand why it wasn't. You know, there was a big part of me that wanted to know, we're going to get into the Cho story. We're going to finally understand maybe what sets up all of that, you know, the drink, the drugs, whatever it might have been. But then
it
we were
also
denied.
sets up, well, I think it actually opens the door to all of our stories, really.
Sure.
I mean, because even Rigsby says to Van Pelt, "Hey, have you ever read
a Colleagues?"
Read a Colleagues? Yeah. So it's kind of just is the first of the door opening to we're going to learn a few things about these three next season.
I suddenly had a final remembrance, and that was when we were shooting the showering scene. I think it was caught in one of the bloopers. Wasn't there a really annoying bee that just wouldn't go away?
Yeah.
And I think Amanda, I think that was what was bugging Amanda on that day, was that she was trying to come up. No?
No. The bee, I believe the bee incident
was Lisbon.
Was Lisbon and Jane.
You're right.
And it was funny because Simon's like, "Hey, don't worry about it. You're all, oh!
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he was being a tough guy. Like, okay, that's bad. Get in the car.
Yeah. He ended up running, screaming. No, but Amanda's blooper was the wind. The wind was throwing dust in her face.
It was throwing my shower, because if you remember, I was showering with a hose pipe. And the wind was blowing.
You were splashing her. Oh, okay.
Yes.
I always thought that was wind. Okay.
No. And the funny thing was that as I was spraying myself, I guess the wind was catching the spray.
I mean,
poor Amanda. She was just downstream of like algae infused, spray tan infused water. I mean, wow, the glamour of Hollywood right there. This episode lives so strong in my mind that even years later, and I want to say it was about 3 or 4 years later, the first thing John Paulson said to me when I got onto the set of Elementary and I was playing Johnny's high school friend, he comes up to me and is like, "Hello, mate. You still remember that ghillie suit?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." Even 3 or 4 years later, he was.
That's great.
You know, that was our main recollection. But no, listen, this was a really fun episode, a beautifully executed one, a really, you know, confidently handled from a directorial point of view, and again, just more affirmation of what we've talked about at length, which is that, you know, we've really found our feet by this point. The show has a very concrete identity, and whether we're playing the lighter touch or whether we're playing the, you know, the heavier storylines, or whether we're conflating them both in the same episode, I feel like now there's no question about what this show is, about who we all are, and about what we represent. And I am so excited now to get into next week's episode, which of course is going to be our big season finale. And we're not going to tell you who the guest is, but I will say this. It is an extremely integral, vital, and utterly, utterly important persona in The Mentalist, who we will be sitting down with next week. So I'll allow you to draw your own conclusions there. In the meantime, Tim, do you have anything else to add on the subject of Blood Brothers?
No. I just wanted to.
Oh, wait 1 second. I've just got to quickly grab something. 1 second.
Yeah. Great.
Sorry, it's just.
Oh yeah, right.
Over here.
I think that's what I was gonna say. Is I just wanted to thank Owen for inviting us all into his home. Thanks, everybody. Owen,
I'm actually more handsome down here.
Well, it's the lighting, maybe.
You've done the lighting is so much better down here.
Here we go.
Until next week, thank you for joining us. We have been the TV Police.